You're listening to the RN Mentor, a podcast designed to document and bring you the work and experience of some of the most influential nurses in our profession. We will be sitting down and having a discussion with the leaders of today's nursing world as they share their work, how they navigate their nursing path, and their views on the future of the profession. My name is Ali Tayeb. I am a registered nurse, United States Navy veteran, a Jonas Veterans Healthcare Scholar, and your host for the RN Mentor. Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Season 4 of the RN Mentor podcast. I have the great pleasure of having Dr. Sheldon Fields with us today. Dr. Fields is a research professor and associate dean for equity and inclusion in the College of Nursing at Penn State University. He is also founder and CEO of the SDF Group LLC, which is a health innovation consultant company. He has 30 years of experience in the healthcare sector and is a well-known and respected HIV/AIDS prevention research scientist with a significant focus on young men of color. He is an advanced AIDS certified registered nurse and a board certified family nurse practitioner. He is a lifetime member of the National Black Nurses Association and currently the National First Vice President. Dr. Fields is a fellow of the American Academy of Nursing, the American Association of Nurse Practitioners, and the National Academies of Practice. Dr. Field received his PhD in nursing science from the University of Pennsylvania, his Master of Science in Family Nursing, and BS in Nursing from Binghamton University. He completed his postdoctoral work in the Center for AIDS Prevention Studies at the University of California, San Francisco. Welcome to the show, Dr. Fields.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I don't know who all that information is, but it sounds pretty good.
It sounds really good. It sounds really good. I'm impressed. I'm always impressed with, some of my guests that I have on the show. I'm impressed with all of my guests on the show. But when I read some of the stuff that's on people's bios, I'm amazed at all the work that you put into your work, and that's where the recognitions comes from. And just so everybody, all my listeners know, the bio is much longer than this, and it will be on the website. So please make sure you check out the full bio of Dr. Fields, which is very impressive.
I'll tell you, Ali, I think it's only sort of representative of who we are and what we do as nurses. It's one of the reasons why I love being a nurse, because we're not limited. We can do so many things even with our basic nursing education, let alone as we progress in our educational journeys. So, nursing has opened up quite a few doors. And I really, really like that aspect. And I talk to students about it all the time. What an amazing career and what you can do. Never underestimate what you can do with a bachelor's degree in nursing to start with.
Right. Absolutely. 100% agree. And that's one of the reasons, I wanted you on the show, because you do bring a different perspective with the work that you're doing now. But before we get into that, your comment was a great segue into my first question that I start all my guests off with is, how did you get started in the world of nursing?
So interestingly enough, when I was growing up, when you look around at your family and you look around, well, who's doing what and who seems to be successful, one of the most successful people in my immediate family was my mother's oldest sister, my aunt, Lorraine. And so, when I mean success, she drove a nice car. She had a house. We always went to her house. So, I was like, well, what do you do for a living? And she was a registered professional nurse. Wow. So she became my first sort of inspiration and one of my long-term mentors for nursing. And then as I progressed through school, I was very fortunate. I was pretty smart. I got good grades. So people always, sort of, I was supposed to be the family's first doctor. Oh, he's gonna be the first doctor. He's pretty smart. And true to form, I did go to undergrad. My original major was pre-med. But I had went to a vocational technical high school in New York, Clara Barton High School for Health Professions. And I had actually trained in the LPN program. So by the time I got to college, I realized my true calling. I realized not only my true calling was nursing, but I think that first chemistry class helped me also realize my true calling was in nursing. It was not going to be pre-med. And I really focused in on becoming a nurse. And from there, it wasn't any looking, it was no turning back.
Yeah, it's a little bit amazing for me that how some of the family members or some of the things that we see as children really influence our pathway into our professions later in life. Because my mom was a radiological technologist, and that's kind of where she immigrated with me. She brought me here when I was 11 years old, and that's where she went into healthcare, and that kind of set this stage for me to look into healthcare as my life progressed. But I also relate to your chemistry thing, because I remember my first chemistry teacher. His voice had, like, I think it was at 10 decibels, like it didn't go above that. And he looked at the board, and I was like, I'm not going to pass this class, but I did I did with a lot of work. So that's great. So how did you decide once you were in nursing, like where you were going to practice, or what area you were going to practice in?
Yeah. I'll give you sort of the quick overview. I graduated from my nursing program in the early 90s, and I was from New York City. So I went back home. My very first job was at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, because I really was going to focus on oncology. That was the area I was sort of gravitating. But when I got to Sloan Kettering, they were treating a lot of HIV/AIDS patients for the cancer-related sequelae, and really got an interest early on in treating HIV patients. And then, because I had a couple of friends who had also been impacted by the epidemic, got more and more into HIV education, outreach, prevention work. Then, while working at Sloan on the evening shift, I encountered a woman, one of my colleagues, who was working as a family nurse practitioner, and she would cover the patients in the evening. So I got really interested in what she was doing in the role of a nurse practitioner. So I actually asked her, I was like, can I come in one evening and just sort of shadow you and see what you do? She was so gracious with her time, Ali. She said, absolutely. So I went and I watched her, and that was it. I was amazed. I was like, I need to become a nurse practitioner. So I went back and I became a family nurse practitioner. Did my got bitten by the research bug. Had one of my professors say to me, and early on in my master's program, well, what are you going to do when you graduate? And I was just like, well, I'm going to go, get a life, buy a car, maybe get, she was like, no, I think you need to go get a PhD in nursing. And I was like, you can do that? And she said, absolutely. So that led to me winding up at the University of Pennsylvania for a PhD in nursing science, working with my long-term mentor in HIV/AIDS prevention, Dr. Loretta Sweet Jamont, and her husband, Dr. John Jamont. That led to my career in HIV research and a pathway to academia, and then from there, became, an academic administrator, and, all the things that I've been able to do that have culminated in the work that I do now as an associate dean for equity and inclusion in, as of yesterday, Ali, what is now officially the Ross and Carol Neese College of Nursing at Penn State University. Our college just got endowed yesterday.
Congratulations on that. Actually, I saw that on LinkedIn with a very generous gift.
27.125 million. If anyone really wants to know what that number was.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I saw that on your post yesterday, and I was like, wow, that's incredible. I happen to be at a school that is also named the Patricia H. School of Nursing. Also a generous gift. I think it was around $7 million. That did that, and I love it. I love the fact that people have the dollars and are willing to invest back in nursing. So congratulations on that. Now you worked the HIV/AIDS component of this. Again, something else I can relate to. I was a Navy corpsman for about 10 years, and my first duty station at the Naval Medical Center, San Diego. I think I've mentioned this in previous podcasts. I was on a medical surgical urology floor, but most of my patients ended up being HIV/AIDS patients of service members, family members of service members. So that was my first real experience into healthcare, and I loved working with those patients. They were just incredible individuals, and went through a lot during the early 90s. That was 92 to 93 or so is when I worked with that population, and very, very happy that I got my start in the world of healthcare with working with that population, because it really set the stage for me as to where my career was going to eventually go. So but thank you for your work on that. That's amazing. Now you did mention your current role as the Dean of Equity and Inclusion. Now with that, what does that role entail for you?
So, the role that I'm in as the Associate Dean of Equity and Inclusion is an inaugural role at Penn State. And I think it more speaks to the need for us to ensure that we are producing a future working nurse force that really does mirror the society that we are and are becoming. Because our society is becoming more and more racially, ethnically diverse and older. And nursing as a profession, quite honestly, at still in many places 90% female and 80% white, is not a diverse profession. As much as I love nursing, I think nursing has been derelict in its long-standing sort of social contract, if you will. We have an obligation in nursing, because we don't get to choose our patients in nursing, nor should we ever get to choose our patients in nursing. We have to care for everyone, irregardless of who they are, race, ethnicity, age, religion, gender identity. It does not matter, because our ANA, our Nursing Code of Ethics, calls us to be present and humanistic and compassionate in every single circumstance. So if nursing is to really fulfill that societal obligation, then when we look at who is a part of our profession, we should look like the Rainbow Coalition that our nation really is. So nursing has a lot of work to do, and positions like mine, bringing in content experts and people who have had experience in various aspects of our profession, to really guide and champion this area for like a major school that Penn State is, I think is really important. I'm extremely honored to be given the inaugural role to help Penn State develop this. I'm working with a phenomenal dean. Her name is Dr. Lori Badzik. She has vision. We are partnering together, and we are putting forth a strategic agenda to really not only help the Commonwealth of the state of Pennsylvania, but our students go all over the world. And this is now the time, and not only nursing, but in our society, because there's a lot of racial, ethnic tension going on in the country. We all know it. It can't be ignored, but nursing has to rise above it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic work, and something that I've struggled with through various organizations of talking about representation, and something that I have struggled with my current organization that I'm working with, because they recently raised the GPA levels for the school of the individuals getting in, and I work at a state school, so and so for a state school to raise GPAs, which makes it more exclusive than inclusive, in my opinion. I mean, it's something that they did because the number of qualified applicants they raised it, so just to raise the standards. But what I think it may have done is exclude a large population of students that would have been able to perhaps get in. Now, I have a question for you. Do you think at what point, what do you think would be the point where we need to start tapping into students so they are prepared for a role in nursing, especially diverse students, right? Students that are underrepresented, period, in higher education, but students that are students that would actually diversify the workforce more for nursing, which is where we would like to see it. Where do we tap into them? Because I think like by the time they apply for nursing school, that's kind of like too late, right? Because
it's way too late. It's way too late. So I'm a very big proponent that we should be talking about nursing and the nursing profession in elementary school. It starts there, because honestly, even by the time they get to high school, a lot of students have already made up their mind. It's too late.
Right.
So part of what we do in the National Black Nurses Association, where I'm really honored to serve as the first vice president, is, within our 100 plus chapters in 35 states, we encourage our chapters to adopt these schools. We go into the schools, we do their health fairs, we talk about the profession. And our president, Dr. Martha Dawson, has a whole vision for doing this. She's setting up something called the Mini Nurse Academy. That's her vision for doing this type of work. But we have got to, and even now, I'll still step in front of classrooms where people will say things to me like, well, you can't be a nurse. You're a man. And I'm like, oh, okay. So one, you need to know that being a male is not an exclusionary criteria for being a nurse. But these students, truly, a lot of them have an image of a nurse that is, of the majority. So those of us who are, racially or ethnically diverse or gender diverse within a profession, we have to do more to talk about the profession, to let people know that there's a pathway to nursing for individuals who look like we do or look like they do. So, because, I show up at plenty of meetings where they have never met a male nurse, a Black nurse, an Hispanic nurse, and being half Puerto Rican, I'm both. So I'm used to that, but I don't want to get used to that.
Right.
So we really do need to talk more in admission standards, like you alluded to nursing school, increasing things like GPA or standardized testing, SATs, ACTs, or even having the two-tiered system where, You're admitted to pre-nursing, and then we admit you to the upper division major based on your TEAS test or whatever it is, or your GPA at that point. I think all of those policies create unnecessary barriers, particularly to ethnic minority nursing students who, for whatever reason, may or may not do as well on those standardized tests, or which mind you, have been proven to be racially biased. Who may not have had the resources to have the same educational opportunities. And even the progression policies through nursing, a lot of nursing programs, you get 1C in a class and oh my God, you can't become a nurse. I think it's the most absurd thing. Yep. There are plenty of doctors, MDs, DOs who graduated medical school with C's. But for somehow in nursing, we have to be almost perfect. I think nursing puts way too much pressure on itself and on its students. But we have got to do better. We got to get more into holistic admissions policies, because we should be looking for nursing students who really do have that humanistic, compassionate sense, versus, somebody who, yes, they may have gotten straight A's, but they have no personality, no humanistic interaction skills, and they're borderline psychopaths. So no, that doesn't make a good nurse. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, some of those nurses end up on the news once in a while too. So,
yes. Or that stereotype of nurse ratchet that doesn't help us.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. So I 100% agree. And I think one of the problems is, I wish there was some kind of there was better representation of what holistic admissions look like within the world of nursing, because we do definitely do ourselves a great disservice when we not admit some of the people that are not falling under the right criteria. And I think a lot of schools that are just looking at their first NCLEX pass rates as a measure of how well the school is doing, instead of looking, I think, at how well they're preparing students for that NCLEX exam and pass rates, right? So, I mean, it's easy to, admit a whole bunch of 4.0, or some of them are even higher than 4.0s students, and then have them do well academically and then take a test at the end. But it's all those other components that makes nursing what nursing is, which is the compassion piece. And I 100% agree. I 100% agree. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now I have a question about, because I know you also have your SDF group, which is looking at health innovation, which you look at that. I want to talk to you a little bit about that, because I think it expands really my portfolio of people I've spoken to as to how. I know a couple of people who have gone the innovations route, but I haven't spoken to anybody on the podcast, and really want to explore that, because again, we do so much work on representing bedside nursing, but nursing is so much bigger than that. So I want to spend a little bit of time speaking about that, if you would, please.
Sure. So remember, I started talking about sort of the multidimensionality of our nursing profession, the multiple things that we can do. So as I progressed with my nursing career, it became evident that I had gathered, certain skills in certain areas, and I started to do more and more consulting work. And even during the pandemic, when things shut down, my consulting work just took off. I had a good accountant a couple of years ago that said to me, you need an LLC because you're making too much money with your consulting gigs. One, I laughed at him. I was like, as an accountant, you should never tell people they make too much money. Two, I understood his point though. So it helped me to sort of focus, and I did form my LLC. It's called the SDF Group. It's the Health Innovation Healthcare Consulting Company. And I tucked underneath all of that all of my consulting work, which in many ways is a lot of innovative work, because I found myself on the cutting edge of developing, different types of DMP programs, and doing consulting work around setting up diversity and equity inclusion training programs, or going in and helping with some professional development for my nursing colleagues as well, particularly with a focus on nurses of color who I still think get the wrong information about even how to enter our profession. Like, there's a certain target. People think, oh, in order to become a nurse, I first have to start out as like a nursing assistant, then become an LPN, then get an ADN, then my BSN. It's like, no, who told you that? Your pathway to nursing out of high school can be straight to a baccalaureate degree, and I think people get the wrong information. Or even at the other end, well, we now have a lot of DNP graduates, and a lot of them are based in our clinical institutions, but a lot of them want to do things like teaching, but they've never been taught how to teach. That's not what a DNP program teaches them to do. And in this assumption that you get a doctoral degree, even a clinical doctoral degree, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, you can go ahead and teach. No, they have to be taught. A lot of them have never even taken an educational pedagogy course, and don't know how to level, a learning objective. So there's that transition that has to happen. And we can do that in very innovative ways of transitioning people from a clinical position into a teaching position. So I started even doing some of that work. And then of course, my first love, which is HIV. I've got involved in doing a lot of international clinical trials through the work with some of my colleagues, through like the HIV Prevention Trials Network and the HIV Vaccine Trials Network. And again, always from looking at the work that they're doing from a cultural lens, about how to implement that research with diverse groups, how to recruit them, how to retain them. So as you can see, even my innovative consulting work is a wide sort of platform of things. And I think it's partly also in my Aquarian nature. I like to do many things at once. I like to joke that, my birthday is the same day, January 29th, as Oprah Winfrey. So she does a lot of things, and I haven't been able to meet her in my life. So if somebody wants to send this podcast to Oprah, we need to celebrate our birthdays together.
That's fantastic. As a fellow Aquarian, I agree with you. There's way too much.
Aquarians rock. I didn't even know that about you, but I now understand our connection.
Yeah, it's definitely too much on my plate, and I just keep piling more. I'm like, I want to do more. But yeah, I 100% agree. Now from an innovation perspective, how did you pick your projects, right? Because I tend to pick my projects based on things that I find, I gravitate to, that brings me joy, sort of a thing. How do you pick your projects of what you work on?
Very similar. I got good at quite a few things. Like, as I progressed with my HIV work and research, and I had students, graduate students, and even doctoral students. So, they extend your work. And then again, looking at it, big research teams working on things like, PrEP medications for prevention, and like just knowing where you can have an impact. And one of the other areas that I really got interested in at one point was the whole health policy area. I was the Robert Wood Johnson Health Policy Fellow during the time of the Obama administration. I worked for Senator Barbara Mikulski from the great state of Maryland. and I actually worked on the Affordable Care Act. In everything that went into that bill, which was a total game changer. So for a while, I still do quite a bit of health policy work. I bring a health policy lens to a lot of the work that I do, and I can consider the health policy side of things. I also, you take your experience, and I've been fortunate to have quite a few really great opportunities in leadership, and you start mentoring the next generation. That's how that part came out. You'll be amazed when I look at some students right out of undergrad. You look at their resumes, it's like, yeah, you're not going to get a job with this, but I'm going to help you fix this. Or I look at a colleague's CV who's going up for promotion and like, no, let's streamline it, let's fix this, let's focus it. And that just comes from experience, in the things that you pick up along the way. And again, nursing affords you those things. And I really do, and I really want your audience to hear this, I really do consider myself to be a nurse entrepreneur.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I definitely, based on just reading your bio and a few things I've listened to from you, I think I agree with you from a nurse entrepreneur perspective, because so many people, when you talk to them about nurse entrepreneurs, they think that they need to like have a product, like a physical product that they're selling, right? Which there are nurse entrepreneurs out there that do that. They have created something, they are marketing it, and they're selling it. But there is that intellectual product that I think nursing, I don't know if nursing has done a really good job in tapping into, right? Intellectual property that, like using your skill set and your experience in order to diversify income or increase or branch out other than what we do in the four walls of a hospital or a clinic.
Well, I think because as nurses, we are natural educators. So we were so used to giving away our expertise. It's just second nature to part of what we do. And there is a way to do that, but also to monetize part of what we do and package your expertise, whether it be in a clinical area or a research area or whatever area it's in, and to be able to leverage it. I don't mind some of my colleagues who use social media, because I think it's a tool, and some of them do use it quite well. Yep. And think about it, Ali, when we think about nursing and reaching the next generation, the millennials and the Gen Zers, social media is where they live.
Right.
So if you really want to have an influence on that next generation, you gotta have somewhat of a social media presence.
Yep, I agree.
And I used to get interesting sort of comments from people who when they, will Google you or do whatever, and they go, Dr. Fields, do you know you have a Wikipedia page? I'm like, yes. I had a graduate student who did that. I was like, do you know you can have a Wikipedia page? People just think about, the various platforms of LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram. One of my students is trying to convince me to do some TikTok, and I'm like, Dr. Fields needs to draw a line somewhere.
That's where I draw the line. TikTok is where I draw the
line. I'm not yet TikToking, but I do see the appeal of it. Don't get me wrong. Yeah.
I mean, social media, I think it's definitely, I mean, I have my private accounts that I close off to everybody except close friends and family, and then I have my public accounts that I put what I put on there.
Absolutely.
But But there
Yes.
definitely has to be a presence. I think people who look away from social media, and
Yeah.
not just because of the controversy or whatever that's on social use of social
Yeah.
media, I think you need to be strategic
But
in how
but
you
think
use
about
it.
it. But think about it as a tool. It
Right,
has allowed the world to be a lot smaller, information to be disseminated a lot quicker,
right.
and even more efficiently. So I see it as a tool,
Yeah.
I think you can get better at using it and utilizing it. Uh, I think you also have to find a balance in what you do.
Mm,
Because like you, I have my private accounts, I have my public, what I call my public facing accounts.
right.
One of my students was like, "Oh, Dr. Fields, why are you not on Facebook?" I'm like, "I am. I just don't use my real name."
I don't think I don't have I don't have any aliases on social media, but it is, but I agree. I think people are, again, I think there's a hesitancy for a lot of people to get on social media because of things that they have heard and seen. But it is, you're absolutely right. It is a tool, just like a resume or a CV or a portfolio. It's another tool to be used in the profession. Actually, over, especially over the last year, it's been the way I've networked.
Absolutely. Well,
So
all of us, we've been at home for almost 2 years. And,
right.
and if the Delta variant has its way, we might be back at home.
For another, yeah, yeah, I know. I'm in LA, and
Oh, yeah.
we went back to masking because the Delta variant here is
Yeah, yeah, yes,
picked up
y'all
again.
did. Yes, y'all did.
Which,
We're
which
doing
I'm
a little bit, we're doing a little better here in New York.
yeah, so yeah, we went back to masking again here in LA. I just spent a week in Arizona. Loved Arizona. It was beautiful, but nobody masks. No one, absolutely no one masked in Arizona, and it made my family and I stand out. We walked into this one supermarket, and my wife turned around and came right out because of the stares that we were getting. But
Yeah.
but
Well, I don't blame you, but it's part of, even think about the work that we do or what I do with healthcare disparities. It's part of the reason why I did the work I did in HIV, because of the huge disparity in the burden of HIV on Black and Brown communities, particularly men of color whose main risk for HIV was sex with other men.
right,
Um, you know, and then you look at the healthcare disparities in people of color that COVID-19 presented. Um, and, in the midst of the already pandemic of racism in the country that was happening, and a racial reckoning,
right.
and nursing was at the forefront of all of it. Think about what we do. Nursing was at the forefront of all of it. So and then belonging to the nursing organizations that I do, um, really it all sort of coalesced over the last 16 months, and being able to have multiple platforms and able to educate and talk and advise was really important. So I just sort of want to make a couple of those points,
Yeah.
because again, it brings together a lot of what we've been talking about, not only what we do as nurses, but the venues and the vehicles we use, and why I found myself doing some of the things that I still do.
Yeah. Now, you brought up an interesting point. Where do you think nursing is as a whole in doing their part, other than what we're doing bedside? Obviously, we're taking care of the patients, but as far as getting the word out, or using its platform for to increase vaccinations, to better inform uh, the general public, and even informing other nurses, because there've been pushback by nursing groups within institutions. There's been unfortunately, we just had a nurse that died from complications of COVID, who was
Mhm,
an anti-vaxxer type of which was
mhm.
unfortunate to hear about. What is what do you think the role of nursing is moving forward? Because, this and other pandemics down the line, this isn't going to be probably our last
Yeah.
one. How well are we doing as a profession? Having you being in
So
several organizations.
yeah, well, I think we learned a couple of things about nursing. One, as a profession, we are not a monolith,
Right.
and we never will be. So, and I say that because I think some people were, even some people public was surprised. Well, how can a nurse be an anti-vaxxer? Well, nurses come from all strings of life, and they bring their own sets of beliefs and values.
Right.
So yes, there is nurses who are anti-vaxxers, but in the bigger sort of responsibility of who we are as the most trusted profession, we speak with authority, we speak with influence, and if you also need to make sure that you do no harm, we have the same responsibility as our physician colleagues to do no harm. And if we really believe in the science base of our profession, you have to look at the facts. And you might be an anti-vaxxer, but that's a personal belief. But when you read the reports and you read the scientific studies that came out of the clinical trials and the information that the CDC is putting out, you really have to be able to balance your professional obligation to appropriately and adequately inform using a science-based with your personal beliefs. Because people will listen to you. And you don't ever want to influence somebody to make a decision that might harm them. Now, I am a nurse, but I'm also really clear, Ali, I identify as a Black nurse. And as a Black nurse, I am not going to miseducate Black and Brown and other BIPOC communities. I am not going to do that. I know that they are at increased risk because of lots of the social determinants of health that we often talk about, but we also don't talk about the political determinants of health in this country. We are a very divided nation, blue state, red state divide. People don't have the same access to information based on where they live geographically, and the platforms that I have and have access to, I am going to speak and can always speak from an evidence-based perspective, understanding even the historical atrocities that those communities have been afflicted with. And I am not going to undereducate them. If anything, I'm going to overeducate them. And even if they do make a decision, it's going to be a decision based on science, in reality, because that's my responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And as you mentioned, so again, from a nursing perspective, from a nursing organizational perspective, how would you? How do we, again, I think this has come up with a few of my guests on the show. How do we unite the voice of nursing around that science? Because I don't know if we've leveraged that most trusted profession. I think others are good at leveraging our most trusted profession, but I don't think we're, as a nursing profession, are good at leveraging.
No, you know what? If nursing ever really actually spoke with one voice, because we are the largest segment of the healthcare workforce, it is not physicians, it is us. And, I think the unfortunate divide within the profession goes back to even the historical implications of how nursing is viewed. We live in a male-dominated society. It's a female-dominated profession. I think that has some aspects to do with why nursing doesn't speak with one voice. Then you layer on the racial divide that happens within the profession, and the entry to practice, and how we divide ourselves up, ADN versus BSN versus LPN. There's not one single voice. Now, some people may argue, well, it's the American Nursing Association, it's the ANA. Okay, well, let's talk history. When membership to the American Nursing Association was only open to white nurses. And I say that because, people will still ask me, well, Dr. Fields, why is there the need for a National Black Nurses Association? Well, because historically we were excluded from that organization. And even when they let us in, they didn't quite give us a seat at the table. It was a small chair at a table in a corner outside the conference room. No, it was inappropriate, and it was inexcusable. So yes, we formed our own organizations because we were not given equal access and the opportunities to share our voices. And the same thing happens with all of the other ethnic minority nursing associations. I'm also a part of the National Coalition of Ethnic Minority Nursing Organizations that includes, the Hispanic, Nursing Association, and the Filipino Association, the Asian Pacific Islander, and Ananina, the Native American Alaskan Nursing Group. And taken together as the five ethnic minority nursing groups, we speak on behalf of almost 1 million nurses in this country. Wow. But we try. But I think there's been so much mistrust, and honestly, even a little bit of, well, not even a little bit of, there has been some mistrust. But Dr. Ernest Grant, who is an African-American man, who is the current president of the American Nursing Association, the first male president ever of ANA in its 100 plus history. And he just happens to also be African-American. He is leading the ANA's Commission on Racism in Nursing. And it's really been a breath of fresh air to see nursing move into a space like this to finally confront some of the racial ethnic disparities that the profession has really not dealt with, which unfortunately has kept us divided. And again, with everything going on in terms of race and ethnicity in our country, it's the right time for it.
Right. So I agree. And yeah, we had Dr. Grant on the show last year, and it was a great interview.
Yeah. Have you ever met him, Ali? Have you ever met Dr. Grant?
I have never met him. I've met him. I've spoken to him multiple times. And again, I had him on the on the podcast, but not in person. So I'm hoping I meet him in person.
He is a mentor of mine. He is absolutely brilliant. The work that he's doing is just so important. And he's sort of a lot of people refer to him as a gentle giant. That's why I asked you if you ever actually met him, because he's very tall. so and most people, it's one of the first things a lot of people, physically, remember Dr. Grant for. So if you've ever met him, you would probably remember, because you were probably looking up.
He shows up tall on a video link also. So yes. So definitely, yeah. So yeah, great. I love the work that you're doing and the things that you're involved with. Thank you so much for your time on this stuff. So I've had a few people on the show. Dr. Danielle McCamey, who does the DMPs of color, and my last.
I literally spoke to Danielle yesterday.
Oh, really? Yeah. She's become I've social media, met her through social media, and we've been talking back and forth for several months now. And Dr. Adrian Martinez Hollingsworth, who does work trying to promote the Hispanic nurses from the junior high school, and upward, and informing that community. So there's a lot of great work being done, I wish we're still not there, but I wish there was a better way to collect all these voices into a unified voice. So I'm hoping that comes
there
about.
is some work being done. I don't know if you've seen it was on my LinkedIn page a couple of times, that the Nurses You Should Know website.
Yes.
That we started earlier in February of this year, just to talk about some of the historical and contemporary historical individuals, mainly people of color, other BIPOC people, who have had influences in the nursing profession, because most of nursing's history comes from a very white female Eurocentric perspective.
Yes.
And most people only think that nursing started, with Florence Nightingale, and it's such a false narrative.
Yes.
And it leaves out the contributions of so many other people. So I would really encourage, your listeners also, you can just Google it, Nurses You Should Know. The website pops up. There are videos and testimonials from a lot of people who have had influence in the profession. There's even a profile of myself on there as well. And I was a consultant to that project. Again, another innovative way in which, we're putting information out there for people in a public space. And a lot of people are starting to use it in their programs as an educational tool.
Yeah,
which is part of one of the things that we were hoping would happen.
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah. I'm actually very familiar with the Nurses You Should Know project, and I think it's fantastic. But
they should do a profile of you.
They actually reached out, and I have timed, I think this afternoon, I think around 5 o'clock, I've clocked to do that exactly.
Yes.
Thank you again. I wish I had more time. We had more time to talk. I hope you and I cross paths at some point. Like I said, I've been an admirer of your work for quite a few months, and thanks again to social media for connecting me with you, and I appreciate it. Anything else? Any last words before we sign off?
Well, two things. One, you and I are now forever connected, so don't worry about that. I do get out to LA, so at some point we will meet. I'm sure our paths will cross. I just really want to leave your listeners with a sense of hope, because I think that's important. And for those of you out there who are thinking about or considering a career in professional nursing, I really want you to hear me, and hear me well. There is a place for all of you at the table in nursing, regardless of your race, ethnicity, gender, religion, gender expression. Do not believe the naysayers that say that nursing is not a place for you, or those people who may try to deter you, because I'm here to tell you that the world of nursing is open to all, and we need you. We absolutely need you. So if nursing is really your passion, your vision, your hope, keep pressing forward, regardless of the obstacles that you may have to overcome. And then again, the very last thing, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with you and with your audience. I think this is really cool.
Thank you so much. By the time I finish editing these podcasts, or putting it together, I listen to all my guests about 4 or 5 times, and I learn something new every time I listen to it. So thank you so much for your wisdom, and thank you for sharing your time. We have been listening to Dr. Sheldon Fields, and I look forward to bringing you more incredible guests as we move along season 4. Thank you very much. You've been listening to the RN Mentor with your host, Ali Tayeb. Please don't forget to visit www.alirtayeb.com. That's www.alirtayeb.com for podcast notes and resources, and don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, I wish you fair winds and following seas.